The letter arrived on a Wednesday, unexpected and devastating. Isabel Johnson stared at the handwritten words. Unsuitable due to complexion concerns. She had sold everything to reach Denver, Colorado, 1878. Now the man who'd promised marriage, through correspondence, rejected her before they'd even properly met. The rancher had taken one look at her rich brown skin and declared her too dark for his expectations. With nowhere to turn and winter approaching the mountains, Isabel contemplated her bleak future. That's when Marcus Chen Washington stepped forward with an offer that would change everything, a mixed-race rancher whose family had faced similar rejection, proposing something far more valuable than pity. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Isabel Johnson had never expected her life to take such a dramatic turn, but then again, she'd never expected to find herself alone in the world at 24. Growing up in Charleston, South Carolina, she'd been part of a small but thriving community of free people of color. Her father, Samuel Johnson, had been a respected carpenter who'd purchased his freedom years before the end of slavery, building a successful business, crafting furniture for wealthy clients who valued fine craftsmanship over social prejudice. Her mother, Clara, had taught at a small private school for Negro children, instilling in Isabel the importance of education and dignity. By the time Isabel reached adulthood, she could read and write in English and French, manage household accounts with precision, and had acquired skills in everything from herbalism to basic business management. She'd spent years helping her father with his business records and assisting her mother in the classroom, developing what the community recognized as an unusually sharp mind for organization and detail. But life had shifted dramatically when yellow fever swept through Charleston in 1877. Both her parents succumbed within days of each other, leaving Isabel devastated and suddenly vulnerable. As a single woman of color, even with property and education, she faced mounting pressures from the shifting social landscape of the post-Reconstruction South. Former slave owners were reasserting dominance through new laws and unwritten codes that made independent Negro women particularly vulnerable. The newspaper advertisement had appeared almost as if fate had placed it before her. Rancher in Colorado Territory seeks educated bride of refined character, must be literate, capable of managing household, and willing to build life on frontier. Complexion no barrier, passage paid. Those last three words had caught her attention. Immediately, in a nation where skin tone determined so much of one's opportunities and limitations, the explicit declaration that complexion was no barrier had seemed providential. Isabel had written a careful letter emphasizing her education, household management skills, and teaching experience. She'd enclosed a tintype photograph showing her dignified posture, neat dress, and the intelligence apparent in her gaze. Her skin, the rich mahogany that carried generations of African heritage mixed with traces of Cherokee ancestry, appeared clearly in the image. She'd wanted no misunderstandings about her appearance. James Morrison's response had been enthusiastic. A rancher who'd built his spread through determination and calculated risk, he wrote of needing a partner who could manage the domestic sphere while he focused on expanding his livestock operations. He'd enclosed passage money and instructions to meet him at the Denver depot on October 15th. His letters spoke of Colorado's opportunities for those willing to work hard, regardless of origin or complexion. The journey west had been grueling. 5 days by train, with increasingly uncomfortable accommodations as civilization thinned. Isabel had occupied herself by studying the changing landscape and practicing conversations in her mind. She'd prepared responses to potential questions about her background, her skills, her vision for frontier life, everything except how to respond to outright rejection based on the very characteristic Morrison had supposedly dismissed as irrelevant. Denver surprised her with its energy and diversity. The depot bustled with a mixture of prospectors, merchants, laborers, and opportunists from across the globe. She'd seen Chinese railway workers, Mexican merchants, and even a few Indian traders alongside the expected crowd of white settlers. The presence of other people of color, though clearly in minority status, had given her cautious hope. James Morrison had been waiting exactly where he'd promised, near the baggage claim area. A stocky man of perhaps 40, with graying beard and expensive clothing that marked him as prosperous. He'd held a sign with her name printed in precise lettering. His initial greeting had been cordial, even warm. He'd helped her retrieve her trunks and escorted her to his buggy, making observations about the weather and the town's recent growth. "The photograph didn't do you justice," he'd commented as they rode through Denver's dusty streets. "You carry yourself with remarkable dignity." For a brief moment, Isabel had allowed herself to believe this arrangement might work. Then Morrison had continued, his tone shifting subtly. "Though I must say, the tintype didn't accurately represent your coloring. It's considerably more pronounced than I expected." The seed of doubt had been planted, though Morrison maintained surface politeness through dinner at his hotel. He'd asked questions about her education, her household skills, her experience with frontier hardships. Isabel had answered honestly, demonstrating knowledge that impressed him despite his growing unease with her physical presence. "You speak remarkably well," he'd said, the backhanded compliment revealing his biases. "And your understanding of accounts is surprising. How exactly did a person of your background acquire such skills?" Isabel had maintained her composure, explaining her family's circumstances without defensive justification. Her father's success in business, her mother's educational background, the community that had nurtured her development. Each explanation seemed to further unsettle Morrison, who appeared to have expected someone less accomplished, more dependent. The next morning had brought the devastating letter, delivered to her room while she breakfasted alone in the hotel dining room. The words had been carefully chosen to maintain a veneer of civility while delivering crushing rejection. "After careful consideration, I regret to inform you that I cannot proceed with our arranged marriage. Your coloring is more pronounced than represented in the photograph, and I fear it would create complications in social circles essential to my ranching business. I've arranged for your room to be paid through the week, after which you must make your own arrangements." No apology for the false advertising that complexion was no barrier. No acknowledgement of the time, expense, and hope she'd invested. Just dismissal and a week's accommodation before being cast adrift in an unfamiliar territory. As Isabel sat in the hotel lobby, the letter clutched in trembling hands, she calculated her resources with growing despair. The return journey to Charleston would consume most of her remaining savings. Even if she reached her hometown, what would await her? Her parents' property had been sold to cover debts and funeral expenses. The teaching position her mother once held had been filled. Single women of color had few options in the increasingly hostile South. The sound of the hotel's front door opening drew her attention. A tall man entered, moving with the easy confidence of someone comfortable in his surroundings. His appearance immediately marked him as different from the predominantly white clientele. His features carried the distinctive blend of Chinese and African heritage, high cheekbones combining with warm brown skin, straight black hair contrasting with brown eyes that held hints of green. He wore well-tailored clothes that spoke of prosperity without ostentation, and carried himself with an authority that suggested he was no stranger to command. Several hotel staff nodded respectfully as he passed, indicating he was a regular presence here. The man paused when he noticed Isabel, his gaze moving from her distressed expression to the letter in her hand. Something in his assessment seemed different from Morrison's calculating evaluation. This man's eyes held recognition rather than judgment, as if he understood something fundamental about her situation. "Miss Johnson," he said, his voice carrying a slight accent that suggested education in multiple places. "I am Marcus Chen Washington. I own the Double Star Ranch north of the city. I overheard your situation being discussed by the hotel staff, and I believe I might offer you an alternative to whatever difficulties you're contemplating." His directness caught Isabel off guard. In Charleston, such an approach between strangers would have been considered improper. But this was Denver, and desperation had a way of redefining propriety. "I don't believe I mentioned my name to anyone," she responded carefully, her instinct for self-protection asserting itself. Marcus smiled, an expression that reached his eyes and transformed his serious demeanor. "James Morrison dined with several local ranchers last night, boasting about his educated Negro bride who would help elevate his social standing. Then this morning, the same Morrison complained to the hotel manager about having to pay for accommodation he no longer required due to his bride being misrepresented in their correspondence." Heat rose in Isabel's cheeks, a mixture of embarrassment and anger. To be discussed so callously by strangers, her personal circumstances becoming fodder for casual conversation, felt like a violation. "I'm sorry you had to endure that," Marcus continued, his tone gentling. "Men like Morrison often mistake intention for action. They speak of progress while perpetuating the same prejudices that limit us all." The word "us" hung in the air, creating an unexpected connection. Marcus Chen Washington represented something Isabel had rarely encountered, someone who existed between worlds, navigating multiple identities in a society that demanded singular definitions. "You mentioned an alternative," she said, focusing on practical concerns rather than dwelling on humiliation. "What exactly are you proposing?" Marcus glanced around the busy lobby, noting several curious glances directed their way. "Perhaps we could discuss this somewhere more private. The hotel has a sitting room where we might converse without providing entertainment for others." Isabel hesitated, weighing propriety against desperation. In Charleston, she would never consider a private meeting with a strange man. But Charleston's rules had already proven inadequate for her current circumstances. She needed to hear what this man proposed, whether it offered genuine help or merely compounded her difficulties. "Very well," she agreed, rising with as much dignity as she could manage. "But I should inform you that I have very limited resources to offer in return for assistance." "Then we are starting on equal footing," Marcus replied with unexpected warmth, "for I would not presume to offer assistance based on your circumstances alone. What I'm proposing is a mutual arrangement that could benefit us both." As they moved toward the hotel's sitting room, Isabel noticed the mixed reactions of other guests. Some stared with open curiosity at the unusual pair, a Chinese African man and a Negro woman walking together with evident purpose. Others pointedly looked away, as if witnessing something contrary to proper social order. Marcus seemed unaffected by the attention, maintaining a steady pace beside her without showing awareness of the glances. His confidence suggested this was not his first experience with public scrutiny based on appearance. The sitting room offered relative privacy, with several groupings of furniture that allowed for quiet conversation. Marcus selected a corner arrangement that would make their discussion less accessible to casual eavesdropping. As they settled into wing-back chairs, Isabel found herself studying him more carefully, trying to understand what motivated this unexpected offer of help. "You clearly exercise in Denver. What capacity do you need assistance?" she asked directly. "I'm educated and capable, but I have no particular skills beyond household management and some teaching experience. I can't imagine what value I could offer a rancher." Marcus leaned forward slightly, his expression earnest. "The Double Star Ranch spans 5,000 acres. We run 2,000 head of cattle, plus horses and smaller livestock. The operation requires constant organization, supply management, worker coordination, contract negotiations with buyers, and most challenging of all, navigating the complex social and business relationships that determine success in this territory. He paused, seeming to gather his thoughts. My parents built this ranch through determination and alliance building. My mother was African, freed from slavery through purchase by my father, who was a Chinese merchant from San Francisco. Together, they created something unique, a prosperous operation run by people society considered outsiders. I inherited not just their land, but also their challenges. Isabel began to understand the connection he was drawing. You face similar prejudices in your business dealings. Precisely. Suppliers who question my credit, buyers who prefer working with traditional ranchers, neighboring landowners who resist cooperation, even some of my own workers who sometimes struggle with taking direction from someone who looks neither fully one thing nor another. He met her gaze directly. What I need is someone who understands these challenges, who can navigate social situations with intelligence and dignity, and who won't be intimidated by the prejudices we'll inevitably encounter. You're describing a business partner, Isabel observed, not a typical role for a woman, even here in Colorado. The double star has never been typical, Marcus responded. My parents defied convention to create it. Their legacy demands I continue thinking beyond traditional limitations. He leaned back, studying her. You came west seeking a partnership through marriage. I'm suggesting a different kind of partnership, one based on mutual necessity and complementary skills, rather than romantic convention. The proposition unsettled Isabel, even as it intrigued her. And what guarantee would I have in such an arrangement? Morrison wrote that complexion was no barrier, yet his prejudice emerged immediately. How do I know you won't change your assessment once I've committed myself to this frontier venture? Marcus considered her questions seriously. A valid concern. Perhaps I should explain more about why I believe this arrangement would work. My mother faced constant judgment for her dark skin, my father for his Chinese heritage. They taught me that those who understand prejudice personally are less likely to perpetuate it. More importantly, they showed me that success often comes from forming alliances with others who've been similarly overlooked by mainstream society. He gestured to the window, where Denver's streets teemed with activity. This territory is different from the East. While prejudice exists here too, necessity often trumps tradition. People need reliable business partners more than they need to maintain rigid social boundaries. If you prove yourself valuable to the Double Star Ranch, and I believe you will, the community will accommodate your presence, because they'll need what we can provide. Isabel felt the logic of his argument, though doubt remained. You've built this assessment on our brief encounter and local gossip about Morrison's rejection. How can you be certain I possess the capabilities you need? I learned from my mother to recognize resilience, Marcus explained. You've endured a transcontinental journey only to face immediate rejection. Yet here you sit, not defeated, but calculating your options. Your speech demonstrates education that goes beyond basic literacy. Your posture suggests dignity that survives adversity. These aren't common qualities, regardless of circumstances. He stood, moving to the window that overlooked Denver's main thoroughfare. Tomorrow, I must travel to Fairplay to negotiate a contract for beef delivery to the mining camps. It's a delicate situation. The current supplier has connections to the territorial governor, and he's using those relationships to maintain his monopoly. I need someone who can observe social dynamics, take accurate notes, and perhaps notice details that a man focused on negotiations might miss. Turning back to face her, Marcus presented his proposal clearly. Accompany me as a trial arrangement. No commitment beyond a day's assistance. You'll see what the work entails. I'll observe whether my assessment of your capabilities proves accurate, and we'll both have better information for deciding whether a longer arrangement makes sense. The offer represented both opportunity and risk. Isabel calculated quickly. She had perhaps 7 days remaining at the hotel, after which she'd face destitution in an unfamiliar territory. 1 day spent observing this man's business dealings could provide valuable information about whether he truly offered an alternative to her desperate circumstances. "What compensation would you offer for a day's assistance?" she asked, focusing on practical details while her mind raced with possibilities. $5, regardless of the outcome, plus reimbursement for any expenses required. If neither of us feels the arrangement should continue, you'll have maintained your options while gaining knowledge about frontier commerce that might prove useful elsewhere. $5 represented significant money, especially for a day's work. The sum indicated either Marcus Chen Washington possessed genuine resources, or he valued this potential arrangement highly. Either possibility encouraged her to accept this. "A trial. I'll need to inform the hotel management of my temporary absence," she said, rising with new purpose. "And prepare appropriate attire for a business journey." Marcus smiled with what appeared to be relief. "We depart at dawn. The mountain roads require early starts to ensure safe travel. I'll have a carriage here at 5 o'clock. As he prepared to leave, Isabel found herself compelled to address the fundamental question underlying their conversation. "Mr. Chen Washington, why propose this partnership to me specifically? Surely you could find assistance from women already established in Denver society." He paused at the threshold, considering his answer. "Those women exist within the social structures that have rejected both of us. You arrived seeking opportunity beyond traditional constraints, demonstrating courage that such women often lack. Additionally," he added with a hint of amusement, "established Denver society might find our business partnership scandalous precisely because it challenges their assumptions about who deserves success." As evening fell over Denver, painting the mountain peaks in shades of purple and gold, Isabel Johnson contemplated the crossroads that had brought her to this moment. James Morrison's rejection had stripped away comfortable delusions about easy paths to security. Marcus Chen Washington's offer provided no guarantees, only possibility, but possibility, she reflected, often mattered more than certainty. Her parents had built their lives on the mere possibility that free Negroes could thrive in Charleston. She had traveled west on the possibility that correspondence might lead to marriage. Now she faced a new possibility, that capability and determination might forge a different kind of future entirely. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot. And to us. Now back to the story. Dawn broke over Denver with the crisp clarity unique to high altitude, and Isabel was ready when the carriage arrived precisely at 5 o'clock. She'd slept fitfully, alternating between anxiety about the coming day and careful consideration of how to present herself as capable without appearing desperate. Marcus emerged from the carriage to assist her, his appearance practical for mountain travel, sturdy boots, wool coat, and a wide-brimmed hat that shadowed his distinctive features. He offered his hand to help her mount the steps, a courtesy that felt natural rather than condescending. "I hope you rested well," he said as they settled into opposite seats of the well-appointed carriage. The interior revealed attention to quality. Leather, upholstery, brass fittings, even small compartments for written materials and valuables, as well as uncertainty permits, Isabel replied honestly. "I've prepared myself as thoroughly as possible, though I suspect the real education begins today." Marcus produced a leather-bound portfolio from beneath his seat. "Then let's begin with context. These are the current contracts we hold for beef delivery to South Park Mines. The supplier we're challenging, Thomas Whitmore, has maintained a monopoly for 3 years through connections and strategic pricing that smaller ranchers can't match." He spread several documents between them, pointing to key figures. Whitmore charges these rates, which represent nearly 15% above fair market value. The mining companies pay because they need guaranteed supply, and Whitmore's reliability is unquestionable. Our challenge is demonstrating that Double Star can provide equal reliability at better terms. Isabel studied the numbers carefully, her mind automatically calculating margins and volumes. If you reduced the premium to 10% while maintaining Whitmore's reliability guarantee, the savings would be substantial for large operations. But how do you prove reliability without existing contracts as reference? That's precisely where strategic observation becomes valuable, Marcus explained. During negotiations, Whitmore will likely emphasize his long-standing relationships and suggest that newcomers represent unnecessary risk. I need you to note how the mine managers respond. Which ones seem genuinely concerned versus those merely maintaining polite distance. Their carriage began the ascent into the foothills, the road winding through pine forests that grew denser as they climbed. Other travelers appeared occasionally, freight wagons hauling supplies to mountain settlements, smaller buggies carrying businessmen on similar missions, and the occasional rider moving with urgent purpose. You mentioned yesterday that you managed your father's business records, Marcus continued, seemingly comfortable with their extended proximity. What kind of enterprise did he run? Custom furniture, Isabel explained, grateful for conversation that distracted from the increasing narrowness of the mountain road. Fine cabinetry and specialized pieces for wealthy clients. He taught me that understanding financial patterns mattered as much as craftsmanship. Poor bookkeeping could destroy a successful shop faster than poor workmanship. A valuable lesson for any enterprise, Marcus observed. Mining camps desperately need reliable food supply, but they're equally desperate for intelligent financial management. Many operations fail not from lack of silver, but from inability to control costs and predict cash flow. As they climbed higher, the temperature dropped noticeably. Marcus produced heavy blankets from storage compartments beneath the seats, arranging them with practiced efficiency. The thoughtfulness struck Isabel as characteristic. He anticipated practical needs without making a show of consideration. You seem remarkably familiar with this journey, she noted as they navigated a particularly challenging turn. I make it twice monthly during the traveling season, he explained. Building relationships in mountain communities requires regular presence. You can't win their trust through occasional visits and written correspondence alone. The wisdom resonated with Isabel's own experience in Charleston, where her father's success had depended partly on personal relationships built through consistent interaction. But the social dynamics here would be entirely different from Charleston's established hierarchies. How do these communities respond to your unique background? She asked carefully, uncertain whether directness might offend. Do they welcome Chinese-African Business Alliance? Or does Prejudice operate differently at altitude? Marcus appreciated her straightforward approach. Mountain communities develop their own hierarchies based on different criteria than cities. Reliability matters more than ancestry when you're isolated by snow for 6 months. They care that I deliver what I promise, that I don't shortchange their orders, that I maintain fair prices even when demand spikes. He paused, gazing out at the spectacular vista of peaks and valleys. That said, my mother's experience taught me that acceptance often comes with conditions. They accept me as long as I don't challenge their social boundaries beyond commerce, which is precisely what your presence might do. The observation created a moment of tension between them. Isabel recognized the implicit warning. Her participation in Marcus's business world might destabilize the delicate balances he'd established. I understand the risks, she assured him. If my presence creates more problems than my assistance solves, I'll withdraw without objection. That's only fair. Do your established interests Fair consideration, Marcus acknowledged. But I believe you underestimate both your potential value and these communities' adaptability. Progress often arrives through unexpected combinations. Their conversation paused as they entered a particularly treacherous section of road, carved into the mountainside. The carriage swayed slightly as they negotiated hairpin turns, the drop to their right simultaneously terrifying and magnificent. Isabel found herself gripping the seat unconsciously, though she tried to maintain composure. "First time in mountains?" Marcus asked, noting her tension without mockery. "First time anywhere beyond Charleston's coastal plains," she admitted. "The scale of everything here, the distance, the elevation, the isolation, it makes one reconsider their sense of place in the world. Perhaps that's why the West attracts so many seeking transformation," he mused. "When everything about your environment changes, it becomes easier to change yourself." They reached Fairplay. By mid-morning, the mining town sprawled across a high valley that seemed to touch the sky. Buildings clustered around central mining operations, with residential areas spreading outward in rough patterns determined by terrain rather than planning. The streets showed evidence of recent prosperity, new construction alongside older structures, commercial establishments that spoke to growing population. Marcus guided the carriage to a hotel that appeared well-maintained despite the harsh environment. "The Silverado Hotel hosts most business meetings," he explained as they disembarked. "The owner, Mrs. Martinez, maintains neutrality between competing interests. It serves our purposes well." Inside, the hotel maintained standards that surprised Isabel. Clean floors, proper furnishings, even decorative touches that suggested someone cared about aesthetics beyond mere function. Mrs. Martinez herself greeted them, a woman of middle years whose Mexican heritage and confident demeanor suggested she'd earned her position through determination rather than inheritance. "Mr. Washington," she greeted Marcus with warm familiarity, "your usual room is ready. The Mining Association expects you at noon." Her gaze moved to Isabel with curious assessment but without judgment. "And you must be the young lady Mr. Whitmore mentioned seeing at the Denver depot yesterday. He seemed quite excited about your presence in our territory." The comment created immediate concern. If Whitmore had already identified Isabel's connection to Marcus, he might use it to undermine their credibility. "Mrs. Martinez, may I present?" "Miss Isabel Johnson," Marcus responded smoothly. "She's assisting with our records management during this business trip." "Welcome to Fairplay, Miss Johnson," the woman replied with practiced hospitality. "I hope you'll find our accommodations comfortable despite the elevation. Many visitors require adjustment time." After settling into their respective rooms, Marcus and Isabel convened in the hotel's small dining room to review their strategy for the upcoming meeting. Other guests, mostly men involved in various mining enterprises, occupied nearby tables, their conversations creating a convenient buffer for private discussion. "Whitmore knows you're here," Marcus noted grimly. "That complicates matters. He'll likely attempt to use your presence to suggest I'm making desperate moves by hiring outside help. Then we should prepare counters to whatever narrative he might construct," Isabel proposed, pulling out her notebook. "If he questions my qualifications, emphasize my background in business management. If he suggests desperation, highlight that successful operations evolve their practices." Marcus nodded approvingly. "Your strategic thinking aligns with my own assessments. The challenge remains maintaining focus on business merits while deflecting personal attacks." Over the next hour, they refined their approach. Isabel would document the meeting, a role that justified her presence, while allowing her to observe dynamics Marcus might miss while negotiating. They identified key points to emphasize: Double Star's growing capacity, competitive pricing structures, and reliability guarantees that matched Whitmore's offerings. At precisely noon, they entered the hotel's meeting room, where representatives of 3 major mining operations awaited. Whitmore stood immediately upon their entrance, his bulk and commanding presence dominating the space. Two other men rose more slowly, lean, weathered individuals whose attire and bearing marked them as the actual decision-makers. "Watson, Williams," Whitmore called cheerfully to his companions, deliberately using Marcus's surnames separately. "Look what the mountain brought us, our friend Marcus Chen Washington and his new assistant. Though I must say, most men wouldn't bring their wives to business meetings." The calculated insult demanded response without providing obvious openings. Marcus handled it with remarkable grace. "Miss Johnson manages our records for this negotiation, same as you've brought Wilson here for your calculations," he replied. Nodding to Whitmore's clerk, "We find that thorough documentation prevents misunderstandings about terms and deliveries." The mining representatives, Edward Watson from the Golden Hills operation and James Williams from Summit Valley Mining, introduced themselves with polite distance. Their keen eyes assessed both Marcus and Isabel, clearly noting the unusual nature of their partnership. "Let's proceed to business," Watson suggested, his gruff demeanor cutting through social complications. "Time's valuable at altitude. Mr. Whitmore, present your proposal for increased capacity." As Whitmore launched into his presentation, Isabel maintained careful notes while observing the dynamics Marcus had predicted. Whitmore's price increase request, 20% higher due to increased operational costs, drew visible discomfort. From both mine owners, Williams interrupted with sharp questions about specific cost increases. "Feed prices haven't risen that dramatically. What justifies this steep premium?" "Reliability costs," Whitmore asserted confidently. "Smaller operations can't maintain consistent supply through winter conditions. You've experienced the consequences of shortfalls, men threatening strikes, productivity dropping. My prices guarantee uninterrupted delivery." The argument held weight, and Isabel noted both mine owners nodding reluctantly. This was the opening Marcus needed. "Gentlemen," he interjected smoothly, "perhaps we should examine whether reliability truly requires such premium pricing." He produced documents carefully prepared for this moment. Double Star Ranch has increased capacity by 40% over the past year. We've invested in winter storage facilities and established agreements with smaller ranchers for backup supply. Williams studied the documents with growing interest. These specifications suggest considerable infrastructure development. The granaries alone represent significant investment that allows us to offer guaranteed delivery at 15% above current market rates, 5% lower than Mr. Whitmore proposes, Marcus stated firmly, with identical reliability guarantees and provisions for emergency shortfalls. The tension in the room shifted perceptibly. Whitmore's confident expression tightened as his monopoly faced genuine challenge. He attempted to redirect the conversation toward experience and established relationships, but both mine owners remained focused on the financial comparison. Throughout the exchange, Isabel documented precise quotes and observed subtle signals. Watson's increased attention when Marcus mentioned winter storage capacity, Williams's skeptical glance when Whitmore claimed exclusive access to emergency supplies. These details would prove valuable for follow-up negotiations. The meeting concluded without immediate resolution, as expected. The mine owners requested time to review both proposals thoroughly. Outside the hotel, as they prepared for the return journey, Marcus turned to Isabel with evident satisfaction. "You captured Watson's reaction when we discussed infrastructure investment?" he asked as they walked toward their carriage. His eyebrows lifted significantly, and he leaned forward. "To examine the documents more closely," she confirmed. Williams seemed more interested in the emergency supply provisions. Both appeared genuinely surprised by your capacity increase. "Excellent observations," Marcus praised. "Those details will guide our follow-up strategy." Watson values tangible infrastructure. He'll want to inspect our facilities. Williams worries about reliability during emergencies. We should prepare specific examples of our contingency planning. As their carriage began the descent from Fairplay, the late afternoon, sun painted the peaks in shades of gold and amber. Isabel reflected on the morning's success. She had functioned effectively in an environment completely outside her experience. "You handled yourself admirably," Marcus commented, as if reading her thoughts. "Whitmore's attempt to undermine us through social implications failed because you maintained professional focus throughout." "I recognize the tactic," Isabel admitted. "Similar dynamics existed in Charleston, though the specific prejudices differed. Men often challenge women's business presence through personal insinuation rather than professional argument. A universal truth, unfortunately. Your composure denied him that weapon." The journey back to Denver provided opportunity for more extensive conversation. Marcus shared details about building Double Star Ranch, the challenges his parents faced, the alliances they'd forged, the principles they'd established. Isabel reciprocated with stories of her family's experience in Charleston, the community they'd built, the delicate negotiations required to maintain business success while navigating complex racial hierarchies. "Your parents created something remarkable," Marcus observed, as they discussed her father's furniture business. Independent prosperity demanded exceptional diplomacy in the South's social climate. "They taught me that dignity and business acumen could coexist," Isabel reflected, though Charleston's constraints ultimately limited how far their principles could extend. "Perhaps Colorado offers different possibilities," Marcus suggested. The setting sun cast his profile in sharp relief, highlighting features that carried stories of cultural convergence. "If today's trial proved anything, it's that capability transcends conventional categorization when necessity demands solutions." As Denver's lights appeared in the distance, Isabel considered the day's implications. She had proven herself useful in a single business encounter. The real test would be whether this success could develop into sustainable arrangement, one that offered her genuine security while providing value to Marcus's enterprise. "Where do we proceed from here?" she asked directly, as their carriage negotiated the final miles to Denver. "Tomorrow, Watson and Williams will send telegrams requesting formal proposals," Marcus predicted. "We'll need to prepare detailed offerings, including inspection schedules for our facilities. If you're willing to continue as my business assistant, I'd welcome your involvement in developing these proposals." The invitation carried implicit acceptance that extended beyond mere trial. Isabel recognized the significance, not just employment, but acknowledgement of her demonstrated value. "I'm willing," she confirmed, "though we should discuss compensation and term arrangements. Today proved the concept. Practical agreements require clear parameters." "Agreed. Shall we finalize details over dinner? The Clarendon Hotel serves excellent meals, and we can discuss specific terms in their private dining room." As they entered Denver, Isabel felt different from the uncertain woman who departed that morning. The mountain journey had challenged her assumptions about possibility. Success might require navigating prejudice and social complexity, but her capabilities provided tools for that navigation. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, developing business proposals, handling administrative demands, continuing to prove her worth. But she faced these prospects with confidence earned through demonstrated competence rather than hopeful speculation. The rejected mail-order bride had found something unexpected in Colorado territory. Not the security of marriage, but the dignity of proving herself invaluable through intelligence and determination. As their carriage pulled up to the Clarendon Hotel, Isabel knew she was stepping toward a future shaped by choice rather than circumstance, partnership rather than subordination. The Clarendon Hotel's private dining room provided an elegant setting for their business discussion, its mahogany, furnishings and crystal fixtures creating an atmosphere of serious commerce. As dishes arrived, fine steaks with sophisticated sauces that spoke to Denver's growing cosmopolitan aspirations, Marcus outlined the parameters of a longer-term arrangement. Based on today's performance, I propose a 6-month contract. He began, cutting his meat with precise movements. $300 monthly, plus accommodations in Denver when required, travel expenses, and a 5% commission on any contracts you directly assist in securing. The sum exceeded anything Isabel had imagined possible. In Charleston, even skilled professionals rarely commanded such compensation. Her immediate instinct was to accept before Marcus reconsidered, but her father's voice echoed in her memory. Never accept a first offer without understanding its full implications. That's exceptionally generous, she acknowledged carefully, though I wonder about the specific duties beyond what we experience today. Successful arrangements require clear understanding of expectations. Marcus nodded approvingly. Direct communication serves us both. Your responsibilities would include managing Double Star's business correspondence, organizing contract documents, accompanying me to negotiations when beneficial, and gradually taking over our financial record keeping. Currently, I employ a bookkeeper who visits monthly from Colorado Springs, but his understanding of complex operations is limited. Complex operations? Isabel inquired, sensing layers beyond cattle ranching. Double Star maintains multiple revenue streams, Marcus explained. Beyond cattle, we operate freight contracts between Denver and mountain towns, manage grazing leases on public lands, and recently began mineral rights speculation in consortium with other investors. The administrative demands have outgrown my capacity to manage alongside daily operations. The breadth of Marcus's enterprise surprised Isabel. She'd assumed his prosperity came solely from ranching, not realizing he'd built a diversified business that required sophisticated financial management. You'll need more than basic bookkeeping skills, she observed. Multiple revenue streams demand understanding of different accounting principles and tax implications. Precisely why I believe you're suited for this role, Marcus replied. Your educational background and demonstrated analytical ability suggest you can grow into these responsibilities. I'm willing to invest in training you because I believe capability matters more than existing expertise. Their discussion continued through multiple courses, with Marcus elaborating on Double Star's various enterprises. The freight operations alone involved complex logistics, coordinating with rail companies, managing seasonal route changes, negotiating with merchant customers. The mineral rights speculation required understanding geological reports and legal filings that determined valid claims. I must confess uncertainty about several aspects, Isabel admitted, as dessert arrived. Financial management systems differ between territories, and Colorado's tax structure remains unfamiliar. Also, my presence in your business dealings might generate complications beyond today's minor prejudices. Marcus set down his fork, his expression serious. Let me address the second concern directly. Yes, our association will provoke commentary. Denver society includes progressive elements, but it remains divided by conventional boundaries. You'll face speculation about the nature of our relationship, doubts about your capabilities, and probably open hostility from some quarters. And how do you propose we manage such challenges? Through consistent professionalism and undeniable results, he stated firmly. Initially, I suggest you maintain quarters at Mrs. Henderson's boarding house on California Street. She houses several professional women, teachers, shop proprietors, a lady physician. Your residence among them establishes independence while preventing scandal about improper cohabitation. The practical consideration impressed Isabel. Marcus anticipated complications without trying to pretend they didn't exist, offering solutions instead of reassurances. Now, regarding your concerns about territorial laws and accounting differences, he continued, I've arranged for you to consult with my attorney, Mr. Samuel Goldstein. He handles our legal affairs and can provide necessary education on Colorado's commercial regulations. Their conversation drifted toward personal matters as coffee arrived. Isabel learned that Marcus had studied briefly at a mission school in San Francisco, where his father's merchant connections had purchased unusual opportunities for a mixed-race child. The experience had given him perspective on education's transformative power, while also teaching him the limitations of formal schooling for those society deemed marginal. My parents believed strongly in alliances across differences, Marcus reflected. They witnessed how isolation weakened individuals, while cooperation created strength. Their marriage itself represented that philosophy, two people who faced exclusion separately finding power together. A philosophy you seem to have inherited, Isabel observed. Your business model relies on connections between diverse communities, ranchers, merchants, miners, investors. You bridge gaps others maintain. Gaps maintained through fear and misunderstanding, Marcus agreed, though I acknowledge the courage required to cross them, which is why I respect your decision to travel 2,000 miles on faith alone. Most people find comfort in familiar limitations. Their evening concluded with final arrangements. Isabel would begin officially the following morning, with her first task being to organize Marcus's existing business papers into coherent filing systems. They agreed to meet daily at his downtown office to coordinate activities and plan upcoming negotiations. As they separated outside the Clarendon, Marcus hesitated before speaking once more. Miss Johnson, Isabel, if I may, I want you to understand that this arrangement offers what I can provide. Fair compensation, respect for your capabilities, and opportunity to prove yourself in challenging circumstances. I cannot guarantee universal acceptance or shield you from all prejudice. But I can promise that within our professional partnership, you'll be judged solely on merit. That's more than most can offer, Isabel replied, and more than enough to begin building something worthwhile. The next morning found Isabel at Marcus's office on Larimer Street, a modest but well-appointed space on the second floor of a building that housed various commercial enterprises. The office consisted of 3 rooms, a general area for business meetings, Marcus's private office, and a smaller space that would become her domain. Her first task revealed the magnitude of chaos she'd inherited. Marcus maintained correspondence in roughly chronological order, with documents from different business streams mixed together indiscriminately. Legal contracts required location among personal letters. Financial records existed in various ledgers, without cross-referencing systems, and supply invoices mingled with investment prospectuses. For someone who ran such diverse enterprises with apparent success, Marcus showed surprising tolerance for administrative disorganization. Isabel suspected this stemmed from his hands-on management style. He knew operations intimately, rather than relying on systematic records. Organized chaos, Marcus observed when checking her progress mid-morning. I've developed memory systems for tracking important details, but they scale poorly as operations grow. Understandable, Isabel commented, sorting documents into preliminary categories. Your mind clearly operates systematically. These papers simply need to reflect that order externally. Her categorization revealed fascinating insights about double stars operations. The freight contracts alone showed Marcus dealt with over 30 different merchants, some requiring special handling for perishable goods, others demanding precise timing for manufacturing supplies. Mineral rights documents suggested recent speculation in areas that standard geological wisdom considered unpromising. bold investments that hinted at access to privileged information. "You receive reports from private geologists," she noted, holding up correspondence that discussed mineral indicators in obscure locations. "These aren't public survey documents." My father's merchant network included Chinese prospectors who developed unique techniques for identifying valuable deposits, Marcus explained. They shared knowledge with him that traditional mining experts often dismissed. "I maintain those connections today." The revelation illuminated another dimension of Marcus's success. He didn't simply work harder or smarter than competitors. He leveraged alternative knowledge systems that others ignored or couldn't access. The principle aligned with Isabel's own experience. Her father's furniture business had flourished partly because he understood both European and African woodworking traditions, creating unique products that appealed to discerning clients. By afternoon, Isabel had created basic filing categories: contracts current, contracts pending, financial records, correspondence, business, correspondence, personal, legal documents, and mineral land holdings. Each category would require subdivision, but the framework provided immediate improvement over the existing disorder. "The difference is remarkable," Marcus commented, surveying her work. "Visual organization clarifies thinking. I can already see patterns in our contract negotiations that the previous chaos obscured." That evening, as Isabel prepared to relocate from the hotel to Mrs. Henderson's boarding house, she received an unexpected visitor. Maria Santana, the dress seamstress, who maintained a shop on the same floor as Marcus's office, knocked on her hotel room door, bearing a proposal. "Mr. Washington mentioned you'd be working in our building," the young Mexican woman explained, her English slightly accented but perfectly clear. "I thought perhaps we might establish mutual assistance. My shop serves many Denver women, but I lack someone to help manage accounts and inventory. You clearly have skill with numbers." The suggestion intrigued Isabel. Developing additional income sources would increase her independence and security. Moreover, the connection might provide valuable insights into Denver's social dynamics through the female clientele. "What would such an arrangement entail?" Isabel inquired. "2 afternoons weekly," Maria proposed. "I handle all sewing myself, but need help with ledgers, ordering supplies, and managing customer accounts. I could offer $15 weekly, modest compensation, but might supplement your other work." The practicality appealed to Isabel's instinct for financial security. Her arrangement with Marcus, while generous, remained new and therefore uncertain. Building multiple income streams paralleled the business diversification Marcus employed so successfully. "I accept," she decided, "though we should discuss with Mr. Washington to ensure no conflict of interest arises." Maria smiled warmly. "He already knows. Mr. Washington supports small business alliances. He believes community prosperity benefits everyone's success." The conversation reinforced Isabel's growing understanding of Marcus's business philosophy. He didn't operate as an isolated entrepreneur, but as someone actively building an ecosystem of supportive relationships. This explained both his success and his willingness to take risks with unconventional partnerships. That night at Mrs. Henderson's boarding house, Isabel settled into quarters far different from her Charleston home or the hotel's impersonal luxury. The boarding house maintained strict propriety, ladies' hours, separate dining for unmarried residents, mandatory church attendance on Sundays. Yet the independence it offered outweighed these restrictions. Her housemates proved remarkably diverse for social Denver. Besides herself, the current residents included Rebecca Cohen, the Jewish teacher, Dr. Sarah Wong, a Chinese-American physician trained in Philadelphia, and Elizabeth Turner, a widow who maintained a successful bakery. Their evening conversations revealed experiences that paralleled Isabel's challenges: professional women, navigating society's limitations while building meaningful lives. Men often question my medical training, Dr. Wong shared over evening tea. They suggest my Chinese background makes me suited only for traditional remedies. Yet the same men seek my services when their physicians fail them. Identity becomes both obstacle and opportunity, Rebecca added. The Jewish community welcomed me as teacher, yet I face exclusion from positions at public schools. We adapt by creating our own structures. Elizabeth nodded agreement. After my husband's death, relatives assumed I'd sell the bakery and remarry quickly, but I discovered I managed the business better alone than we ever did together. Now those same relatives praise my business acumen while maintaining I'm exceptional among women. These conversations provided Isabel with invaluable context for her new life. Denver's progressive reputation didn't eliminate prejudice, but created spaces where capable women could prove themselves despite social barriers. The boarding house itself represented one such space. Mrs. Henderson deliberately housed women who challenged conventional limitations, creating a community of mutual support. Tomorrow begins the real work, Isabel reflected that night, organizing her notes on Double Star's business operations. The day had demonstrated that Marcus's offer represented genuine opportunity rather than charity or exploitation. Her challenge now involved transforming administrative chaos into systems that could support continued growth. But more than business organization awaited her in Colorado. Through Maria's friendly overture and her housemates' diverse experiences, Isabel recognized she was entering a community of people who, like herself, had chosen to create value despite society's attempts to constrain them. Each carved out space for dignity and success through determination and mutual support. As she prepared for sleep, Isabel studied her reflection in the small mirror above her washstand. The same dark skin that had prompted Morrison's rejection now appeared different somehow, not a liability to overcome, but simply one characteristic among many that shaped her journey. In Charleston, her complexion had defined her possibilities. Here in Denver, her capabilities might determine them instead. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, implementing her filing systems, learning Colorado's legal distinctions, building relationships with Double Star's various business connections. But tonight, Isabel Johnson felt profound gratitude for the unexpected path that had led from rejection to opportunity. Sometimes, she reflected, society's failure to see your value created space to prove it in entirely new ways. The boarding house settled into nighttime quiet around her, its residents pursuing rest before another day of forging unconventional successes. Outside, Denver's streets buzzed with commercial activity even at this late hour. Another mining town transformed into a center of territorial commerce. Isabel drifted toward sleep planning, categorization systems, and efficiency improvements, her mind already working to demonstrate that capability knew no color boundaries. In Charleston, she'd been Miss Isabel Johnson, daughter of successful free Negroes who'd earned respectability through careful navigation of rigid social structures. Here she was simply Isabel Johnson, business manager, a role defined by what she could achieve rather than what society deemed appropriate for her to be. The transition held both liberation and uncertainty, but as Isabel finally surrendered to exhausted sleep, she carried the conviction that uncertainty often preceded the most meaningful transformations. James Morrison's rejection had hurt, but if it led to partnership with someone who valued her mind as much as her presence, perhaps prejudice sometimes cleared paths to unexpected excellence. 2 weeks into her position, Isabel's organizational systems had transformed Double Star's operational efficiency. The filing system she'd implemented revealed profitable patterns hidden within Marcus's administrative chaos. She discovered overcharging on cattle feed, duplicate freight orders costing hundreds monthly, and payment terms that disadvantaged their cash flow. Each improvement validated her presence while building Marcus's confidence in her analytical capabilities. These feed suppliers have been billing us for premium quality while delivering standard grade, Isabel reported during their morning review, spreadsheets documenting the discrepancies. The chemical analysis you requested confirms the substitution goes back 8 months. Marcus studied the evidence, his jaw tightening with controlled anger. Henderson's Supply has been our primary vendor for 3 years. My father established that relationship. Loyalty shouldn't excuse exploitation, Isabel observed carefully. The financial impact exceeds $2,000 annually. Their eyes met across the desk, and Marcus nodded slowly. Agreed. Prepare a formal complaint for my signature. We'll pursue recompense while seeking alternative suppliers. Such moments of decisive action became routine as Isabel uncovered additional inefficiencies. Her work with Maria Santana's dress shop provided unexpected benefits. The female clientele shared valuable intelligence about local merchants, social dynamics, and economic shifts. Women discussing business while selecting fabrics revealed insights that formal negotiations often concealed. Mrs. Whitmore ordered 3 new gowns last week, Maria mentioned during one of their accounting sessions. Her husband's company landed exclusive rights to the new Silver Camp near Leadville. She mentioned their freight contracts will expand substantially. This intelligence proved invaluable. When Whitmore approached his usual suppliers, Double Star had already secured agreements with key freight companies based on superior reliability guarantees and competitive pricing. Marcus's business network expanded as word spread of their effective partnership. The following month brought their most significant challenge yet. The Colorado Mining Association announced a regional conference in Colorado Springs, where major supply contracts would be negotiated. Attendance required a 3-day commitment, including social functions, where mining executives' wives would be present. Your participation has become essential, Marcus acknowledged during their planning session. Several mining operators specifically requested your presence after our success in Fairplay. They value your analytical perspective on contract structures and the social expectations, Isabel inquired, understanding the implications. Conference attendance would thrust her into Denver society's scrutiny far beyond casual business. The dealings will need to navigate carefully, Marcus admitted. I suggest we prepare Clara as our chaperone. My ranch foreman's wife has experience in these situations and commands respect among both traditional and progressive elements. Clara Reeves proved an invaluable ally, a sturdy woman of 60 with keen intelligence hidden beneath a matronly exterior. She'd supported her Chinese husband through decades of social complexity. During their preparation for the conference, she provided frankly practical advice. Wear your best dress, but nothing that invites speculation about who purchased it, she counseled while reviewing Isabel's wardrobe. Engage in social conversation, but avoid political debates. Let your professional reputation precede you rather than trying to establish it through direct assertion. The conference itself tested these strategies immediately. The Colorado Springs Hotel buzzed with territorial business leaders whose prosperity depended on mining operations. Many recognized Isabel from their dealings with Double Star, though their acknowledgments varied from polite nods to elaborate pretense of not seeing her. The first negotiation session proceeded smoothly. Isabel's detailed analysis of transportation cost projections impressed even those who'd questioned her presence. Her suggestion to create seasonal rate structures that adjusted for winter difficulty while maintaining fair pricing earned approval from multiple mining companies. Your proposal about winter premiums shows sophisticated understanding, commented Peter Reynolds, president of the Colorado Mining Association, after the session. Many overlook how seasonal challenges affect freight economics. Social functions proved more challenging. At the evening reception, Isabel navigated a maze of subtle exclusions while maintaining professional composure. Some wives engaged her in genuine conversation about Denver's development. Others discussed her presence as though she weren't present. "I understand you're working with Mr. Washington," said Evelyn Summers, wife of a prominent mine owner, her tone suggesting scandal rather than business inquiry. How unusual for a young woman to involve herself in such rough commerce. Business management requires attention to detail, regardless of the specific industry, Isabel replied evenly. Double Star's operations demand skills similar to running a complex household. Budget oversight, supply coordination, staff management. The comparison to domestic management resonated with some listeners while deflecting deeper inquiry. Clara nodded approvingly from her position as silent supporter, her presence lending social legitimacy to Isabel's unconventional role. During the conference's second day, unexpected validation arrived from Thomas Whitmore himself. Facing challenges in his own empire due to Lidville's rapid expansion, he approached Marcus and Isabel after the morning session. "Washington," he acknowledged stiffly, "I hear you've secured several Northern Route contracts. The Miners' Coalition requests proposal for emergency relief transport to the new silver camps." The admission of need by their primary competitor marked a significant shift. Isabel quickly produced relevant data from her organized files, demonstrating Double Star's capacity for rapid response deliveries. The negotiation that followed resulted in Double Star's largest contract yet, emergency freight services commanding premium rates for winter mountain access. Professional competence transcends personal prejudice when necessity demands, Marcus observed privately after finalizing terms. The quote captured the pragmatic evolution of frontier economics. That evening's formal dinner tested Isabel's social navigation skills further. Seated among mining executives and their wives, she maintained conversation about neutral topics: the territory's educational development, improvements in transportation infrastructure, Denver's growing cultural offerings. Her Chicago-educated boarding housemate Dr. Wong had coached her on managing such gatherings. "Professional women at social functions walk a careful line," Sarah had advised. "Too quiet suggests you don't belong. Too assertive confirms fears about improper ambition. Find topics where your intelligence serves conversation without threatening social hierarchy." The strategy proved effective until Senator Benjamin Harrison's wife engaged Isabel directly. "Miss Johnson, I'm told you maintain remarkable organizational systems. My committee work for charitable causes could benefit from such expertise. Might you consider offering guidance?" The invitation represented both honor and potential complication. Accepting could elevate Isabel's social standing, but might also create tensions with her primary employment responsibilities. Clara intercepted with perfect timing. Miss Johnson's reputation for systematic thinking has indeed spread, Clara confirmed diplomatically. Perhaps she could recommend reading materials on financial organization that might benefit the committee's work. The compromise satisfied social requirements while protecting professional boundaries. Such moments taught Isabel valuable lessons about maintaining autonomy within restrictive expectations. The conference concluded with Double Star securing contracts worth over $50,000 annually, a testament to Isabel's analytical contributions and Marcus's strategic execution. Their professional partnership had proven itself on a regional stage, establishing precedents that challenged conventional business relationships. Returning to Denver, Isabel found herself viewing the city differently. No longer was she merely an outsider seeking opportunity. She'd become part of Denver's evolving commercial landscape. The administrative skills that had once seemed limiting within feminine expectations now enabled her to shape significant business outcomes, yet success brought unexpected complications. James Morrison, learning of Double Star's conference triumph, attempted to discredit Isabel's role through calculated rumors. He suggested Marcus maintained unnatural influence over a naive young woman, insinuating impropriety to undermine their business credibility. Maria Santana first alerted Isabel to Morrison's campaign. He visited my shop, supposedly ordering shirts for his ranch hands, but he spent considerable time asking about your character, your daily routines, whether you appeared overly familiar with Mr. Washington. The rumors demanded careful management. Isabel and Marcus developed a strategy combining transparency with professional distance. They maintained strictly business interactions during office hours while ensuring their public appearances always included appropriate companions. Clara's continued presence as social chaperone made manipulation of appearances difficult. "We must neither hide nor over-defend," Marcus counseled when discussing their approach. "Our business results speak loudest. Let Morrison exhaust himself, inventing scandals while we build undeniable success." During this period, Isabel's work with Maria Santana deepened into friendship. The seamstress shared stories of her own challenges, arriving from Mexico with nothing but needle skills, building a business one satisfied customer at a time, maintaining cultural traditions while adapting to new social contexts. "My father taught me that identity remains flexible when survival requires adaptation," Maria reflected one afternoon while Isabel helped inventory fabric stock. "In Mexico, I was simply Maria. Here, I become Mexican Maria, then successful. Much in Maria. Each role carries different possibilities." Their conversation illuminated Isabel's own journey. She'd arrived as rejected mail-order bride, transformed into business manager, evolved into respected analyst whose opinions influenced territorial commerce. Each identity built upon rather than replaced previous selves. The boarding house continued, providing crucial support during this transitional period. Rebecca Cohen had begun teaching evening literacy classes for immigrant workers, and Isabel volunteered her organizational skills to develop student record systems. Elizabeth Turner's bakery business faced expansion decisions that benefited from Isabel's financial analysis expertise. "We create our own revolution," Dr. Wong observed one evening as the group discussed their various professional challenges. "Not through dramatic protests, but through demonstrating competence that society cannot ignore. We're building parallel structures rather than confronting existing ones directly." The philosophical insight resonated deeply with Isabel's experience. Double Star's success hadn't required attacking traditional ranching practices, but rather implementing innovations that improved upon them. Similarly, her own advancement emerged not from demanding acceptance, but from providing value that demanded recognition. 3 months into her employment, Isabel reviewed Double Star's financial statements with growing confidence. Profits had increased by 30% since implementing her management systems. The diversified business model, combining traditional ranching with freight services, mineral speculation, and strategic alliances, showed remarkable resilience against market fluctuations. "You've transformed this operation," Marcus acknowledged during their quarterly review. "The administrative foundation now supports expansion opportunities previously beyond our capacity. I'm considering establishing satellite operations in Pueblo and Fort Collins. Geographic diversification aligns with freight contract optimization," Isabel agreed, already calculating investment requirements. "But rapid expansion risks overextending management capacity. Perhaps we should consider developing additional managers rather than expanding your personal oversight." The suggestion prompted serious discussion about Double Star's future structure. Marcus hadn't considered training others to share management responsibilities, but Isabel's analysis demonstrated the necessity. Growing beyond one individual's capacity required building organizational strength beyond personal capability. As winter approached the territory, Isabel found herself increasingly integrated into Denver's diverse business community. Chinese merchants who'd worked with Marcus's father now sought her advice on Western accounting practices. Mexican freight operators valued her bilingual communication skills. Even some traditional business circles that had initially resisted slowly acknowledged her expertise. The transformation extended beyond professional acceptance. During one particularly successful business dinner, where Isabel's contract proposals earned approval from multiple mining operations, Marcus raised his glass in toast to partnership that recognizes potential beyond conventional boundaries. That's it. Words carried personal as well as professional significance. Their working relationship had evolved into something deeper. Mutual respect built through shared challenges, trust developed through consistent reliability, understanding forged through complementary capabilities, recognizing each other's worth. That evening, as Isabel prepared comprehensive expansion plans for Double Star's potential satellite operations, she reflected on her remarkable journey. 6 months prior, she'd considered herself fortunate to escape Charleston's limitations for promised security as a ranch wife. Now she wielded genuine influence over territorial commerce, her analytical skills shaping decisions that affected thousands of workers across Colorado. Yet the greatest transformation lay in recognizing that security emerged not from subordination to another's protection, but from developing capabilities that commanded respect. James Morrison's rejection had devastated because she'd internalized the belief that her value required his validation. Marcus Chen Washington had offered something Morrison couldn't comprehend, recognition of worth already present, awaiting only opportunity to flourish. As snow began falling on Denver's streets, covering the raw frontier town in pristine white that temporarily masked its rough edges, Isabel completed her work for the evening. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, managing Double Star's winter operations, preparing for spring expansion, continuing to prove that capability transcended social categories, but tonight she simply appreciated the profound shift in her circumstances. From mail-order bride rejected for the darkness of her skin to business manager whose analytical mind influenced territorial development. The journey illuminated how easily society's limitations could be transcended when one found allies who valued substance over superficial categorization. Outside her boarding house window, Denver transformed under winter's blanket, each snowflake representing possibility accumulated through perseverance. Isabel Johnson had arrived seeking security through marriage, but discovered something far more valuable: professional partnership built on mutual respect and recognition of shared capacity for excellence, regardless of race or convention. The telegram arrived on a bitter January morning, delivered by a rider whose horse wore the distinctive brand of the Double Star Ranch. Inside the envelope, Marcus's foreman reported an emergency at their mountain operations. Avalanche damage had destroyed critical supply storage, threatening their commitment to winter deliveries. The crisis demanded immediate attention, yet Isabel faced her own dilemma that same morning. Your presence transforms this examination from administrative review to credibility assessment, Samuel Goldstein, their attorney, had explained when scheduling a meeting about Double Star's banking arrangements. The territorial bank examiner specifically requested you demonstrate the financial systems personally. Caught between competing urgencies, Isabel made a decision that would reshape their business structure fundamentally. I'll handle the banking examination while you address the mountain crisis, she proposed to Marcus. We can't abandon our contracts, but we also can't lose the financial credibility we've built. Marcus hesitated, his expression revealing both concern and calculation. The bank examination carried significant implications. Their expanding operations required increased credit lines, and the examiner's report would influence not only their banking relationships, but their standing with suppliers and partners. "The risk is considerable," he acknowledged. "Without my presence, they might question whether you truly understand the scope of our operations. Or they might see how thoroughly I've mastered these systems," Isabel countered. "We've spent months ensuring the records speak for themselves. Let them do so." The conversation marked a pivotal moment. Rather than accommodating conventional expectations about who represented authority, they were choosing operational logic over social comfort, exactly the principle that had made their partnership successful. Marcus departed for the mountains within the hour, leaving Isabel to prepare for what became much more than a routine examination. Word spread quickly through Denver's business community that the mixed-race rancher's Negro business manager would single-handedly represent Double Star Ranch to the Territorial Banking Authority. The morning of the examination, Isabel dressed in her finest professional attire, a severe but elegant dress in deep burgundy that projected competence without excess. She arrived at the bank 30 minutes early, using the time to review her presentation materials once more. The documents told a compelling story: systematized inventory tracking, optimized freight routes, diversified revenue streams, all resulting in consistent profitability despite seasonal challenges. Bank examiner Harold Whitfield arrived precisely at 9, his reputation for exacting standards preceding him. A tall man with steel-grey hair and penetrating gaze, Whitfield had earned respect throughout the territory for uncovering financial misconduct that less thorough examiners missed. His initial assessment of Isabel appeared to confirm every prejudiced assumption about her presence, a brief nod that barely acknowledged her existence. "Where is Mr. Washington?" he asked immediately, not bothering with introductions. "Addressing emergency avalanche damage at our northern operations," Isabel replied calmly. "However, our financial records are comprehensive. I can demonstrate our accounting systems and answer any questions about our various business ventures." Whitfield's skepticism showed plainly. "Young woman, banking institutions require direct engagement with principal owners. While I'm sure you maintain adequate clerical skills, these examinations demand understanding of business fundamentals beyond bookkeeping." The dismissive attitude strengthened Isabel's resolve rather than intimidating her. She had faced such assumptions repeatedly since arriving in Colorado. "Shall we begin with our transportation contracts?" she suggested professionally. "The seasonal rate structures I developed have increased freight revenue by 48%, while reducing delivery delays by 32%. Despite himself, Whitfield's interest flickered. Transportation economics directly affected mining. Profitability, the backbone of Colorado's economy. He followed her to the private examination room, where she had arranged Double Star's documentation methodically. Over the next 3 hours, Isabel walked Whitfield through every aspect of Double Star's financial operations. She explained how cross-referencing shipping manifests with payment records revealed systematic overcharging by previous freight partners. She demonstrated the cash flow projections that guided their inventory purchasing decisions. Most impressively, she detailed the risk management strategies that protected them from commodity price fluctuations. Halfway through the presentation, Whitfield's posture changed. He leaned forward, asking increasingly technical questions that revealed genuine engagement rather than perfunctory procedure. When Isabel produced comparative analyses showing Double Star's efficiency metrics exceeded territorial averages by substantial margins, his skepticism transformed into professional respect. "These mineral rights investments," he noted, studying documents regarding Double Star's speculative holdings. They follow unusual patterns. Most operations focus on established claims with proven yields. Isabel seized the opportunity to explain Marcus's strategic thinking. We utilize geological intelligence from Chinese prospector networks, traditional methods that often identify deposits overlooked by conventional surveys. These investments balance our portfolio's dependence on cattle and freight revenues. Remarkable diversification, Whitfield admitted. And the accounting integration between these various streams demonstrates sophistication I hadn't expected. He paused meaningfully. From any operation, regardless of management structure, the subtle acknowledgement marked progress. By noon, when they broke for scheduled lunch, Whitfield had shifted from challenger to collaborator, discussing banking solutions rather than questioning basic competence. The bank president, initially wary of the unconventional presentation, found himself impressed by Whitfield's positive assessment. Miss Johnson has demonstrated exceptional comprehension of complex financial principles, Whitfield reported. Double Star Ranch maintains accounting standards that exceed many larger operations I've examined. Their expansion proposals are well supported and carefully calculated. The validation resonated beyond immediate banking arrangements. News traveled quickly through Denver's commercial networks. The Territorial Bank Examiner had praised a Negro woman's financial management. The precedent challenged assumptions that extended far beyond banking circles. Meanwhile, Marcus faced his own crisis in the mountains. The avalanche had destroyed more than supplies. It had blocked the only practical route to several mining camps dependent on Double Star's deliveries. Failure to resolve the situation would mean broken contracts and damaged reputation precisely when their business reputation mattered most. Arriving at the affected site, Marcus discovered the engineering challenge exceeded initial estimates. The snow mass had destabilized the entire canyon wall, making standard clearing attempts dangerous. Traditional solutions, simply cutting through the debris, risked triggering additional slides that could trap workers. We need expertise beyond our current capabilities, admitted Jensen, the experienced foreman who managed their northern operations. The terrains become unstable in ways our men haven't encountered. Marcus faced a difficult decision. Hiring outside engineering consultants would delay delivery for weeks while consuming resources earmarked for spring expansion. Yet attempting shortcuts could result in catastrophic failure, both in immediate safety and long-term reputation. His solution reflected the same innovative thinking that had built Double Star's diverse success. Among their freight contracts was a relationship with the Wellington Mining Equipment Company, whose engineers specialized in mountain tunneling techniques. Rather than hiring them directly for expensive consultation, Marcus proposed a different arrangement. Supply our stranded mining camps through Wellington's existing tunnels, he negotiated with company executives. In exchange, provide engineering support for clearing our route. Your equipment reaches the camps. Our reputation remains intact, and you gain priority freight contracts for next season. The creative partnership solved immediate problems while establishing valuable connections. Wellington's engineers demonstrated techniques that revolutionized Double Star's approach to mountain operations. Within 2 weeks, they had not only cleared the avalanche damage, but improved the route's stability through strategic reinforcement. These parallel successes, Isabel's banking triumph and Marcus's engineering solution, reinforced their partnership's fundamental strength. Rather than conforming to conventional limitations, they consistently found alternatives that transcended traditional boundaries. When news of both accomplishments reached Denver simultaneously, the impact on Double Star's reputation proved transformative. The Territorial Bank increased their credit authorization by 60%. Mining suppliers began offering priority access to equipment previously reserved for established operations. Even Thomas Whitmore acknowledged their competence grudgingly, remarking that unorthodox management sometimes produces orthodox results. Yet success attracted unexpected attention from beyond Colorado's borders. A delegation from the Western Banking Association, headquartered in San Francisco, requested permission to study Double Star's financial integration methods. Their interest stemmed from Whitfield's official report, which had praised Isabel's systems as innovative approaches worthy of broader implementation. The invitation carried significant implications. Presenting their methodologies to regional banking authorities would elevate their influence considerably. However, it also meant exposing their practices to increased scrutiny from institutions potentially less progressive than Colorado's emerging commercial culture. "We've built something remarkable through necessity," Isabel observed as they discussed the invitation. "Perhaps sharing it could benefit others navigating similar challenges." Their decision to accept the delegation launched Double Star's evolution, from successful regional operation to influential industry model. The visiting bankers, initially skeptical about examining systems developed by a Chinese African rancher and Negro woman, departed impressed by the measurable results of their collaborative approach. "Efficiency recognizes no racial boundaries," commented Charles Huntington, president of the California Merchants Bank, after reviewing their freight optimization calculations. These routing algorithms could transform transportation economics. Throughout the Western Territories, the recognition validated more than business methodology. It demonstrated how innovation often emerged from perspectives traditionally excluded from influencing commerce. Double Star's success resulted partly from Marcus and Isabel combining insights from multiple cultural traditions, creating solutions that purely traditional approaches missed. As winter gradually yielded to early spring, their relationship deepened beyond professional partnership. They had weathered crises that would strain many business arrangements, emerging stronger through mutual support and complementary capabilities. Neither had sought romance when their paths converged, yet shared purpose had fostered genuine affection. One evening, while reviewing expansion plans for their proposed Pueblo satellite office, Marcus made an observation that transcended business strategy. "We've created something unique here, a partnership that succeeds precisely because it doesn't constrain either participant to predetermined roles." Isabel met his gaze, recognizing layers of meaning beneath the professional observation. "Traditional boundaries would have limited both our individual potential and collective achievement. Success required creating our own definition of partnership." The moment hung between them, not dramatic declaration, but quiet acknowledgement of affection built through shared struggles and mutual respect. Neither felt compelled to immediately transform their relationship's nature. The professional partnership provided foundation for whatever personal connection might develop organically. Their boarding house community noticed the evolving dynamic with supportive discretion. Dr. Wong particularly understood the complexity of maintaining professional reputation while acknowledging personal feeling in frontier society. Love between equals challenges social expectations. Most profoundly, she observed during one evening's gathering, society more easily accepts affection that confirms existing hierarchies than relationships that suggest alternative structures. The insight reflected broader transformations occurring. Throughout Denver, the Territorial Banking Association's endorsement of Double Star's methods had encouraged other institutions to reconsider their assumptions about capable management. Women's commercial contributions began receiving acknowledgement previously withheld. Mixed-race entrepreneurs found resistance softening as results superseded prejudice. By spring's arrival, Double Star Ranch had expanded to include 3 satellite operations, each managed by individuals whose diverse backgrounds once would have excluded them from such responsibility. Maria Santana's brother Manuel oversaw the Pueblo Freight Office. A former Chinese railway engineer managed their growing transportation logistics. Even Clara Reeves had assumed formal responsibilities for coordinating their expanding social obligations. "We're not just building a business," Marcus reflected, as they reviewed first quarter results showing profits up 65% from previous year. "We're demonstrating an alternative model for frontier commerce, one that values capability wherever it resides." The philosophy continued, generating unexpected alliances. Their success in rehabilitating the mountain route led to consulting opportunities from competing freight operations. Banking institutions throughout the territory sought Isabel's expertise in developing financial tracking systems. Even some, who had initially opposed their unconventional partnership, began requesting collaboration on various ventures. Most surprisingly, James Morrison approached them that spring with a proposal that acknowledged his previous prejudices. "I misunderstood potential when I rejected Miss Johnson," he admitted during a tense meeting. "Now I recognize that my traditional perspectives limit my own success. Would Double Star consider managing freight contracts for my expanding cattle operations?" The request represented more than business opportunity. It symbolized how demonstrable competence could transform even entrenched bias. Rather than gloating over Morrison's implicit apology, they negotiated fair terms that benefited both parties, while establishing new standards for their service agreements. As Denver blossomed into spring, revealing the promise hidden beneath winter's severity, Isabel stood on the balcony of Marcus's office, contemplating their remarkable journey. 8 months prior, she had arrived as a rejected mail-order bride, dark skin deemed unsuitable by a man who couldn't see past superficial categorization. Now she wielded influence that shaped territorial commerce, her analytical capabilities. Recognized by banking authorities and business leaders alike, the woman deemed too dark had proven that brightness existed in intelligence, determination, and accomplishment, qualities that recognized no color boundaries. Marcus joined her on the balcony, bringing coffee as spring morning sun painted the Rocky Mountains in shades of amber and rose. No words seemed necessary. Their professional partnership had evolved into something deeper while maintaining the mutual respect that made it extraordinary. Together, they had demonstrated that society's most limiting assumptions often masked its greatest unrealized potential. Their success hadn't required abandoning identity or conforming to restrictive expectations. Instead, they had created space where diverse capabilities could flourish through cooperative effort. The future remained uncharted, but Isabel faced it with confidence, earned through proving herself indispensable not despite her background, but through the unique perspectives it provided. James Morrison's rejection had unknowingly cleared the path to a far more meaningful partnership, one that celebrated rather than concealed the very qualities he had feared. As Denver awakened to another day of possibilities, Isabel understood that true belonging emerged not from acceptance on others' terms, but from creating value that demanded recognition on one's own. She had found not just employment but purpose, not mere partnership, but profound connection, exactly what she'd hoped to discover when leaving Charleston, though in forms she never could have imagined. The summer of 1879 brought unprecedented growth to Colorado Territory, and Double Star Ranch found itself at the forefront of the economic transformation. The railroad companies, recognizing the need for reliable suppliers along their expanding routes, approached Marcus and Isabel with a proposal that would reshape their business entirely. The Denver and Rio Grande Railroad requires consistent provisioning stations every 50 miles along their new southern route, explained Harrison Blake, the railroad's procurement director, as they reviewed maps in Double Star's main office. Current suppliers lack the organizational capacity to maintain predictable inventory across multiple locations simultaneously. Isabel studied the logistics carefully, her mind already calculating the scope of such an undertaking. "You're describing a supply chain system that would require real-time communication across hundreds of miles, coordination with diverse local suppliers, and precise forecasting of demand variations." Blake's eyebrows rose appreciably. "Precisely. Few operations demonstrate the administrative sophistication required. Your reputation for reliable delivery during this winter's emergencies drew our attention to Double Star's capabilities." The opportunity excited and daunted them both. Accepting would triple their operational scale virtually overnight, demanding innovations in management that would push their systems to new limits. Declining might signal to the broader business community that Double Star had reached its ceiling. "Will need additional personnel," Marcus observed, tracing the proposed route. "Each supply station requires local managers who understand both our standards and regional peculiarities. That's at least 15 new supervisory positions, plus support staff. And we'll need to develop training systems that can transfer our protocols rapidly to new managers," Isabel added, already conceptualizing the challenge. "The margin for error decreases significantly when dealing with railroad schedules." Their decision to accept launched Double Star into what local newspapers dubbed the Great Supply Expansion. Over the following weeks, they transformed their operation from concentrated excellence to distributed efficiency. Isabel's organizational genius proved crucial. She developed standardized training manuals, created clear communication protocols, and established quality control measures that maintained consistency across distances. The search for qualified managers revealed unexpected resources. Rebecca Cohen's literacy classes had created a pool of educated workers often overlooked by traditional recruiters. 2 of her Chinese students, skilled in both English and bookkeeping, became invaluable logistics coordinators. Several Mexican merchants who'd worked with their freight operations possessed natural management abilities, enhanced by bilingual capabilities perfect for diverse workforce supervision. "We're not just hiring managers," Isabel reflected during one recruitment interview. "We're identifying leaders who've been systematically excluded from leadership opportunities. Their fresh perspectives may prove our greatest advantage." Indeed, the diverse management team brought innovations that Marcus and Isabel hadn't anticipated. Juan Morales, a former vaquero who assumed supervision of the Southern Supply Depot, introduced horsemanship training that reduced transportation accidents by 40%. Li Wei, a Chinese merchant's son, implemented inventory tracking using traditional counting board methods that surprised double-entry practitioners with their accuracy and speed. The pressure of rapid expansion, however, created friction within their established routines. For the first time since forming their partnership, Marcus and Isabel disagreed fundamentally about direction. The dispute arose over Isabel's proposal to decentralize financial authorization, allowing supply station managers to approve expenditures up to $50 without central permission. "That degree of trust could expose us to significant loss," Marcus argued during a tense evening discussion in his office. "Fraud investigations alone would consume resources we can't spare during this expansion. And yet maintaining central control over every minor decision will paralyze our operations," Isabel countered, gesturing to the communication delays that already challenged their growing network. "Managers must possess both authority and accountability to respond effectively to local conditions." Their disagreement represented more than practical logistics. It reflected philosophical differences about organizational trust and control. Marcus's experiences had taught him caution about delegation, while Isabel's perspective emphasized empowering qualified individuals to exercise judgment. The resolution came through compromise, born of mutual respect. They implemented a graduated authorization system. New managers received limited approval power that increased based on demonstrated reliability. The approach satisfied both Marcus's need for oversight and Isabel's vision of distributed authority. "We've created something unprecedented," Marcus acknowledged after finalizing the policy. "Not just a business expansion, but a management philosophy that adapts to frontier needs while maintaining fiscal responsibility." The strain of expansion, however, took unexpected personal tolls. Their previous rhythm, morning strategic sessions, afternoon problem-solving, evening planning, became fragmented by constant travel demands. Marcus spent increasing time visiting remote supply stations, while Isabel managed the growing complexity of central operations. During one of his extended journeys to the southern depots, a crisis emerged that tested their long-distance communication systems. A suspected smallpox outbreak threatened the mining camp served by their Pueblo station, potentially disrupting essential supplies to vulnerable communities. The Territorial Health Board demanded immediate response plans, but railroad regulations prohibited unilateral actions that might spread contagion. Without Marcus present, Isabel faced the decision alone. She coordinated with Dr. Wong to establish medical protocols, negotiated with railroad officials for emergency exceptions, and arranged supply deliveries that maintained isolation requirements while ensuring miners received necessary provisions. Her actions prevented panic while protecting public health, a balancing act that previous business experience had never required. When Marcus returned to discover the crisis resolved, his mixed emotions revealed deeper currents in their relationship. Pride in her capability competed with concern about the burdens she'd shouldered alone, while gratitude for her competence mixed with guilt over his absence during emergency. "You managed brilliantly," he acknowledged, reviewing the detailed records she'd maintained throughout the crisis. "Though I regret leaving you to handle such responsibility without support." "Partnership means trusting each other to manage alone when necessary," Isabel responded thoughtfully. "Our success has always depended on recognizing each other's capability, not proximity." The exchange crystallized a fundamental truth about their evolving relationship. Physical distance hadn't diminished their professional effectiveness or personal connection. If anything, it had revealed the depth of their mutual confidence. That summer also brought an unexpected visitor to Denver. Eloise Whittendale, a journalist from Harper's Weekly, arrived to document Colorado's economic transformation. Her assignment included featuring businesses that represented the territory's progressive development. Double Star Ranch, with its unconventional leadership structure and remarkable success story, naturally captured her attention. "Your operation defies numerous conventional assumptions," Eloise observed during her first interview, her pen moving quickly across paper. "A mixed-race owner and Negro manager collaborating as equals, immigrants and minorities in supervisory positions, women maintaining financial authority, all while achieving remarkable commercial success." Isabel found herself in the unfamiliar role of spokesperson for innovations she'd simply considered practical necessity. "We've discovered that capability resides in unexpected places when you look beyond traditional qualifications. Our success reflects accessing that overlooked potential." Marcus added a perspective that would become central to the published article. Frontier commerce cannot afford the luxury of inherited prejudice. When supplies must reach mining camps through mountain passes, or financial systems must track complex operations across vast distances, performance matters infinitely more than predetermined notions about who can perform. The journalist spent 2 weeks documenting Double Star's operations, interviewing employees at all levels, observing their training systems and analyzing their financial results. Her eventual article, titled "The New Face of Western Enterprise," would reshape public understanding of frontier business possibilities. The publication's impact exceeded their expectations. Double Star received inquiries from business leaders across the nation seeking to understand their management methods. Several Eastern universities requested copies of their training manuals for case studies on organizational innovation. Most remarkably, the territorial legislature invited testimony about labor practices that could inform upcoming laws regarding workplace equality. "We've become accidental revolutionaries," Isabel remarked wryly while preparing for their legislative testimony. "All we sought was efficient operation." "Perhaps true revolution comes through demonstrating better alternatives rather than demanding change," Marcus suggested. "We've shown that inclusive practices produce superior results. The evidence now challenges others to justify exclusionary traditions." Their legislative testimony generated intense debate across the territory. Conservative elements denounced their approach as dangerous experimentation that threatened social stability. Progressive voices celebrated proof that merit-based practices enhanced rather than undermined economic prosperity. Senator Julia Hennessy, one of few female legislators in the territory, summarized the testimony's significance during closing remarks. Double Star Ranch has demonstrated that Colorado faces a choice: maintain traditions that limit our economic potential or embrace innovations that unleash it. Their success proves prejudice costs more than progress. The attention brought both opportunities and complications. Railroad expansion contracts offered lucrative possibilities, but also demands for maintaining central operations in Denver rather than potentially relocating to more neutral territory. Various municipalities competed for Double Star's satellite facilities, promising tax incentives and improved infrastructure. Even San Francisco interests expressed curiosity about establishing Western operations modeled on their methods. Managing these opportunities required evolving their organizational structure once again. They created an executive team, including their most successful depot managers, granting them equal voice in strategic decisions. Juan Morales, Lee Wei, and Carmen Rodriguez, the manager who had revolutionized their inventory tracking, formed a leadership council that advised on expansion possibilities. "We're institutionalizing the very practices that created our success," Isabel noted during one of these council meetings. "Decision-making that respects diverse perspectives while maintaining clear accountability." The approach prevented one pitfall that had destroyed many rapidly growing enterprises: the concentration of authority in few hands, even capable ones. Marcus and Isabel recognized that sustainable success required distributing leadership rather than multiplying their individual efforts. Personal challenges continued alongside business evolution. The demands of managing far-flung operations created periods of separation that tested their relationship. Communication improved through telegraphic advances, but key decisions still required face-to-face discussion. The emotional strains prompted frank conversations about their future together. "We've built something remarkable professionally," Marcus acknowledged during one rare evening when both were present in Denver. "But I wonder whether our personal connection can sustain the distances our business demands." Isabel considered carefully before responding. "Our partnership began with business necessity and evolved into personal affection. Perhaps that foundation provides strength that conventional romantic relationships lack. We've already proved we can trust each other across distances that would strain many marriages." Their conversation marked a turning point, not in abandoning traditional relationship expectations, but in consciously crafting one that complemented rather than constrained their professional obligations. They began planning for purchases of a substantial residence that could serve as both private home and occasional business venue, acknowledging that their lives would never completely separate professional and personal spheres. Winter approached with Double Star's rail supply contracts. Functioning smoothly, the expansion that had seemed overwhelming 6 months earlier now operated with mechanical precision. Their standardized training systems had created competent managers throughout the territory. Financial controls maintained integrity across distances. Quality measures ensured consistent service regardless of location. Most remarkably, their workforce demographics had influenced hiring practices across Colorado's business community. Other firms, observing Double Star's success, began questioning their own exclusionary policies. Several mining operations tentatively hired their first non-white supervisors. Railroad companies experimented with promoting women to administrative positions previously reserved for men. Change radiates from demonstration rather than declaration, Eloise Whittendale noted during a follow-up visit, preparing a second article on Double Star's expanding influence. Your success has become an implicit argument that even resistant organizations must eventually address. As Christmas approached, bringing Denver its first substantial snowfall of the season, Isabel encountered an unexpected reminder of her journey's origin. Walking through downtown's shopping district with Maria Santana, selecting gifts for their boarding house family, she passed James Morrison on the street. Their former antagonist now nodded respectfully, even removing his hat. In acknowledgement, "Strange how perspectives shift," Maria observed after Morrison continued past. "The same man who found you too dark now seeks your business expertise." Circumstances forced him to confront his prejudices' cost, Isabel reflected. Self-interest often proves a more effective teacher than moral argument. The observation captured Double Star's fundamental strategy, succeeding so effectively that traditional biases became expensive luxuries rather than social necessities. By delivering results that benefited the broader community, reliable supplies, efficient freight, innovative management, they had gradually made inclusion economically essential. That evening, joined by their growing extended family of employees, business partners, and boarding house residents, Isabel and Marcus hosted their first formal Christmas celebration. The gathering mixed cultures, languages, and backgrounds with the easy familiarity that characterized their entire enterprise. Rebecca Cohen taught everyone Hanukkah songs that blended surprisingly well with Mexican Christmas carols. Li Wei shared traditional tea ceremonies that fascinated the mining camp supervisors. Dr. Wong led everyone in preparing dumplings, while Clara Reeves organized traditional carol singing. The celebration represented in microcosm the diverse community that Double Star Ranch had fostered. As the evening wound down, with Denver's streets blanketed under new snow that reflected lamplight like scattered stars, Marcus and Isabel found a moment of quiet on the boarding house porch. The year's transformation seemed almost impossible to comprehend, from mail-order bride rejection to territorial influence, from uncertain partnership to respected enterprise. "A year ago, I arrived in this territory deemed too dark for marriage," Isabel reflected, her breath visible in the cold air. "Tonight, we've demonstrated that society's most limiting judgments often obscure its greatest possibilities." Marcus moved closer, sharing warmth against the winter chill. "We've done more than succeed commercially. We've proven that strength multiplies when different capabilities unite rather than compete." Below them, Denver's lights twinkled across the growing city, each illumination representing lives touched by the opportunities expanding throughout the territory. Above, stars shone with crystalline clarity in the thin mountain air, suggesting infinite possibilities beyond current horizons. The boy who had grown up hearing his parents speak of building bridges between cultures had found a partner who embodied that philosophy entirely. The woman who had arrived seeking security through conformity had discovered power through transcending limitations. Together, They faced the coming year with confidence earned through demonstrating that prejudice was ultimately a burden society could no longer afford. Their example spread quietly but persistently through the territory's business networks, challenging assumptions and expanding opportunities with each successful contract, every promoted employee, and all the small victories that accumulated into transformation. As midnight approached, signaling Christmas Day's arrival and another year's beginning, they returned inside to join their celebration. The future remained unwritten, but its authors had already proven their capacity to craft remarkable narratives from materials others deemed unsuitable. Sometimes the most profound revolutions began not with grand declarations, but with two people deciding that capability mattered more than convention, partnership counted above prejudice, and excellence could emerge from collaborations that tradition would never have proposed. In Colorado Territory's evolving economy, Double Star Ranch stood as proof that society's most rigid boundaries often guarded its greatest unrealized potential. Opening those boundaries required only courage to recognize value wherever it resided and wisdom to understand that shared success transcended individual achievement. The mail-order bride rejected for being too dark had found something infinitely more valuable than the security she'd originally sought. She had discovered how to illuminate possibilities that prejudice had worked so carefully to obscure. The following year brought an invitation that would complete Isabel's remarkable transformation. The International Women's Congress in Chicago requested her presence as a keynote speaker on business innovation. The organizers specifically cited Double Star Ranch's success as evidence that female capability could revolutionize commerce when, given opportunity. "They want me to represent progressive frontier development," Isabel shared with Marcus over breakfast, studying the formal invitation. Speaking alongside suffragettes and female factory owners about economic possibilities, Marcus smiled proudly. "A fitting recognition. You've proven that frontier necessity often creates the most progressive solutions." The journey to Chicago offered unexpected encounters with her past. At the Union Pacific Depot in Omaha, she recognized a familiar figure purchasing tickets, Thomas Whitmore, her former business competitor, now appearing humbled by circumstances. Their paths crossed intentionally as he approached with uncharacteristic hesitation. "Miss Johnson," he addressed her formally. "I understand congratulations are in order for Double Star's latest achievements. The Denver newspapers have chronicled your influence throughout the territory." "Thank you, Mr. Whitmore. I trust your operations are faring well." His expression revealed struggle. "Less successfully than I might wish. Perhaps I was too slow recognizing that traditional methods alone cannot sustain modern enterprise." Admission marked how thoroughly their business model's success had challenged established practices. Even former adversaries now acknowledged the necessity of innovation that embraced rather than excluded diverse capabilities. Chicago itself proved both familiar and alien to Isabel. The urban energy reminded her of Charleston's Port District, yet the rapid industrialization and towering architecture spoke to possibilities impossible in the South. The Women's Congress gathering drew attendees from across North America. Reformers, entrepreneurs, educators, all united by belief in expanding female participation in public life. Her keynote address drew the largest audience of the conference. Standing before hundreds of women whose paths had diverged dramatically from traditional expectations, Isabel spoke not from notes, but from experience. 2 years ago, I traveled west seeking security through marriage. A rancher rejected me for being too dark, deeming me unsuitable for his vision of frontier life. That rejection became liberation from predetermined roles, from others' limitations, from believing my worth required external validation. She described how Marcus Chen Washington had offered partnership based on capability rather than convention, how their diverse workforce had generated innovations that homogeneous management missed, how success emerged through embracing rather than fighting differences. The frontier teaches us that survival demands collaboration across boundaries. In Colorado, we've discovered that prejudice is not only morally incorrect, but economically inefficient. When you exclude talent based on race, gender, or origin, you exclude solutions to challenges that require all perspectives. Her words resonated powerfully. After the speech, women crowded forward with questions, stories, challenges. Many faced similar struggles. Capable minds constrained by social expectations, professional skills, dismissed due to gender or background, talents valued only within narrow domestic spheres. Among the attendees, one woman approached with particular impact. Charlotte Whitmore, Thomas Whitmore's daughter, introduced herself with quiet determination. "Your story inspired me to question my own family's assumptions. I've been managing my father's accounts in secret, believing my education would be wasted if he knew women in our family could master finance." The conversation revealed how Double Star's influence rippled beyond direct business relationships. Success stories traveled through newspapers, letters, and conversations, empowering others to challenge inherited limitations. Returning to Denver, Isabel found the city transformed by early spring, buildings growing taller, streets expanding, wider, commerce becoming more sophisticated. Double Star Ranch had evolved alongside its surroundings. Their reputation for efficient, inclusive operations now attracted investment opportunities previously reserved for Eastern corporations. The Railroad Commissioner's Office requests we bid on the central contract for the transcontinental route expansion, Marcus informed her upon her return. They've specifically noted our success integrating diverse management styles as crucial for serving the expanded territory. The opportunity represented their greatest challenge yet, coordinating supplies across thousands of miles, managing crews speaking multiple languages, navigating regulations varying by state and territory. Yet it also offered chance to demonstrate that their philosophy could scale to national significance. Their proposal incorporated everything they'd learned: decentralized decision-making with standardized quality controls, training programs that valued diverse skills, financial systems integrating traditional and innovative practices. The document itself became a testament to their partnership, Marcus's strategic vision woven through Isabel's analytical framework. 2 weeks after submission, Commissioner William Baldwin arrived personally to discuss their bid. His presence in Denver attracted significant attention, as railroad contracts often determine territorial economic fate. "Your proposal stands unique among submitted options," he acknowledged during their presentation. "Most bidders emphasize expansion speed or cost reduction. You've prioritized sustainable systems that adapt to changing conditions. Rapid growth without sustainable structure collapses under its own weight," Isabel responded. "We've learned that investing in diverse, capable management creates resilience that outlasts economic fluctuations." Baldwin nodded thoughtfully. "Your Chicago speech drew considerable attention in Washington. Several legislators now question whether federal contracts should continue excluding small operations and minorities simply for lacking traditional credentials." The observation suggested their influence extended beyond Colorado's boundaries. Their success challenged not only local prejudices, but national contracting practices that perpetuated exclusion through bureaucratic tradition. During the contract deliberation period, personal matters demanded attention. Marcus and Isabel had functioned effectively as business partners for nearly 2 years. Their professional achievement masked an unresolved question about their relationship's future. One evening, while reviewing expansion projections, Marcus set aside papers to address what neither had explicitly discussed since their Christmas conversation. We've proven we can manage complex business arrangements across vast distances. Perhaps we're prepared to formalize our personal partnership as well. Isabel looked up from her calculations, recognizing the significance of his carefully chosen words. Marriage would complicate our legal structure considerably. Joint ownership laws vary by territory, and our business requires careful negotiation of separate authorities. I agree, which is why I propose we redefine marriage rather than conform to its traditional structure. Our business partnership established precedent. Why not apply those principles personally? The suggestion sparked intense discussion about creating a marriage contract that preserved their individual identities while formalizing their commitment. They consulted multiple attorneys, territorial, federal, and international, to craft an agreement unprecedented in its balance of personal unity and professional independence. 3 months after their resolution, with early summer sun warming Denver's streets, Isabel and Marcus celebrated their unconventional wedding. The ceremony occurred at the boarding house garden, officiated by a progressive minister who accepted their modified vows. Attendees included their entire extended business family, depot managers who'd traveled hundreds of miles, boarding house residents who'd supported Isabel's transition, Chinese merchants who'd connected with Marcus's vision. Maria Santana had crafted Isabel's wedding dress, a creation combining traditional white with embroidered patterns reflecting African, Chinese, and Mexican heritage. The symbolism captured their relationship's essence, respect for tradition merged with innovative accommodation of diverse influences. "We've created something unprecedented," Dr. Wong observed during the reception. "Partnership that maintains boundaries while transcending them. Commitment that enhances rather than constrains individual capability." That evening brought news that completed their personal triumph with professional validation. The Railroad Commission had awarded double Star Ranch the Central Route contract, the largest private freight agreement in territorial history. The decision cited their revolutionary management practices that optimized diverse workforce capabilities and established new standards for equitable commerce. As celebrations continued around them, Marcus and Isabel slipped away to the office, balcony overlooking Denver. The city spread before them like constellation of opportunities, each light representing lives touched by their determination to prove prejudice unnecessary for prosperity. "James Morrison rejected me for being too dark to grace his household," Isabel reflected, her hand finding Marcus's. "Now we'll grace the pages of commerce history." History written by those who refuse to accept society's imposed limitations. Marcus added, "Your skin's richness reflects the depth of your mind and spirit, qualities that illuminated possibilities Crawford couldn't comprehend." Below them, Denver pulsed with frontier energy, matched by increasing sophistication. The railroad terminus they would soon help establish would connect east and west, bringing together diverse peoples whose combined capabilities could revolutionize an entire nation's development. Their story wouldn't end here. The railroad contract would establish precedents for federal contracting reform. Their marriage model would inspire other professional couples seeking equality within commitment. The management philosophy they'd developed would influence business schools emerging across the growing country. But in this moment, under Colorado's crystalline sky, they savored the profound truth their journey had revealed. Society's most rigid boundaries often guarded its greatest unrealized potential. Opening those boundaries required simply the courage to recognize worth wherever it resided, and wisdom to understand that shared success meant more than individual achievement. The mail-order bride, rejected for skin tone, had become a territorial leader whose influence shaped national commerce. The mixed-race rancher who'd offered partnership to a desperate stranger now commanded resources to transform frontier development. Together, they had proven that prejudice was ultimately society's most expensive mistake, a cost that frontier necessity could no longer afford. Their love story wasn't traditional romance, but something potentially more powerful. Mutual recognition between capable souls who refused to let others' limitations define their destinies. As Denver's lights flickered below and the future stretched, infinite above them, Isabel and Marcus faced what lay ahead, with confidence earned through demonstrating that excellence emerged most brilliantly when diverse lights refused to dim themselves for others' comfort. Sometimes, the most profound revolutions began quietly, with two people deciding that partnership mattered more than prejudice, that capability counted above color, and that love's truest expression came in recognizing and celebrating the full humanity of another. The dawn that would follow promised new challenges, fresh opportunities, and continued growth, but it would find them facing it together, partners in every sense, ready to illuminate possibilities that others still considered impossible. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.